And then Mahesh Bhatt in his, characteristic style sits there with his, black shirt and with his, hand on his head like that. And he says, who are you? I said, Anuradha Tiwari. And he said, great, are you any good? And I said, no, I'm brilliant. And he said, great, you're hired. An artist is somebody who can string a lot of disconnected dots together in the talent that he or she has to create a new picture. That you are actually just in a way a medium, It's like the broadband. I'm not interested in competition. I'm not interested in winning. I'm interested in excellence. Or like I'm saying, a lot of people think they have the talent and therefore they're already an artist. No, it's a skill you've got to go and learn.
Hi Anuradha.
Hello.
We are in Mumbai. This is 2024. Can I request you to close your eyes for me?
Okay, I'll try, but actually I'm very trusting, so I will do this very easily for you.
Go back to your childhood, year of your choice. Tell us, what was that feeling which brought a sense of awe to you? Any memory where you were just awed?
That's very interesting because I have two different memories coming up and maybe they're related. One is just rain. And there was a time, though I wrote that poem a little later in my life, but this particular moment, I had a sense of awe when I looked at rain because I said those are God's tears, and therefore everything gets washed because those are God's tears. And therefore, the other majestic memory coming to me for some reason is a gigantic white Shiva. And it's beautiful. Yeah.
Interesting. Somehow, most of the people who discover not themselves as writer early on, but just that they want to express whatever they are seeing, whatever they are appreciating, it starts with nature.
Yeah, has to.
Why does it have to?
Okay. I thought it was self-explanatory, and because such a beautiful question. Because I think, see, what is nature? Nature is the amalgamation of 5 elements, right? It is the universe in its rawest form, right? It's like, then I'll go into quantum physics, but it's literally the atoms of everything that make reality or beyond. And what is a writer or an artistic person doing is engaging with that energy to actually I'm sorry, I'm going to sound poetic about it, but to actually keep experiencing the ecstasy of it. It's like every time I will have to say this in Hindi because I think it'll sound better कि आप जब भी किसी भी arts में होते हो, whether it's singing, which I've been learning now for 2 years, or dancing, and I love dancing, or when people paint, and then of course when we write or create, what are you really doing? You are actually reaching out into the unknown. It's almost another dimension. और वहाँ पे आपने कोई एक तार छुआ है जो आपको पहले नहीं पता था, और उस तार को छूने से आपको एक या तो सुर सुनाई दिया है, which is why they say अब कहानी का सुर क्या है.
Right.
That's what they really mean. कि सुर नहीं लगा या लग गया. And that's what you keep looking for. That's why we're paranoid mad people looking for that sur, right? And that sur can only come through nature because it's the sur, it's
Fluidity.
it's the melody of the universe, and that is only in nature. Now, how can it come from anything else? So
Right.
so that's what when I just I'm so glad you put me into that memory, and I never visited or revisited it. To just experience rain like that,
Yeah.
all of us are, everybody has a relationship with rain, but to be able to feel that that's where the melody of the universe is, and that if I synced with that melody somewhere, something bursts out of me.
Right.
That's why. So it has to be nature. And then each time with different parts of nature, for example, I was stuck in Kerala right now in a beautiful way. And I keep going to Kerala because it's really God's own country,
Yeah.
and like nature at its prettiest. And I go there to just recharge, and I almost always do solo trips there. Just I don't want any other energy around me for it. It's because I'm actually nurturing the artist in me when I go to a place like that. It's pure nature.
Precisely to do that, and thank you
Yeah.
for putting it so beautifully. Precisely to do that, to nurture and strengthen the universal artistic energy which
Yeah.
we believe exists, and all of
course.
us are trying to just drive little bit here and there out of it.
Yeah.
is why we created this platform called Voice of Artist. So
That's lovely.
welcome to Voice of Artist. So this vision of unlocking the artist within everyone is what we are going ahead with. And sometimes it might feel to us, it does feel to us that it's very hopeless or idealistic. What do you have to say for that?
No, firstly, I think these are anomalies. Now, hopeless and idealistic can't be together, right? If you're hopeless, you're not idealistic. And if you're idealistic, then you're full of hope.
Right.
So clearly, if you set up a show like this, you're extremely hopeful. And I think hope is a lovely word and hope is a lovely feeling. Well, I'll get back to hope in some time in a different context. But if you're asking me about unlocking the artist in someone, so at a deep human level, yes, I think of course everybody resonates with that sur of, cosmic melody that I'm talking about, but that doesn't necessarily make them an artist. So therefore, then what is the definition of an artist, right? Of course, that will vary, and what I'm offering is my personal view, but also what I'm going to say, you will verify, as you look around. An artist is not just somebody who just expresses, right? Or that or it is only related to talent कि कोई गा लेता है कोई डांस कर लेता है. No, that's not really an artist.
Yeah.
An artist is somebody who can string a lot of disconnected dots together in the talent that he or she has to create a new picture. In fact, there is a whole thing called big picture thinking,
Right.
and lateral thinking.
Yeah.
That's what an artist does. So now, so therefore, no, I'm sorry, I think it's a skill, and of course you can learn that, or or it's a talent. So some people are god gifted, they already know how to do what I'm saying, or like I'm saying, a lot of people think they have the talent and therefore they're already an artist. No, it's a skill, you've got
Build
to go
it.
and learn.
Yeah.
But that's why. So therefore, when you say unlocking the artist in everyone, no, I don't quite agree with that, because I don't think everybody wants to be that.
Right.
That's not necessary.
Right.
But if you're saying that, if is there a way of, therefore, I'm just rephrasing that, and again, that's my view. If you're talking about flow, that can be unlock flow in people, and therefore they are sort of resonating with cosmic flow in an easier way. Yes, of course. That's what
Right.
spiritual practices are meant to do.
Right.
They may or may not.
Right.
But yeah, so I would answer it, a little with this discernment. And
I'm glad that you said that, because that's exactly what we were hoping to come out of this conversation. Because, like you said, the word artist, the word influencer,
Oh yeah.
the word talent
Right.
is so abused and misused. We really felt the need to clarify and define what does it mean to be an artist, and exactly like you said is what we are hoping becomes the norm and not the exception. That it does not necessarily mean if you have a specific skill or a showbazi that you can do is when you become an artist, but being an artist can be a way of life.
Certainly, of course. Yeah.
And in that direction, I'm going to ask you something which is going to bring out the emotion and passion within you. What is a writer to you? What does it mean to be a writer?
I mean, I have so many epithets that they all almost collided in my head at one go. So I would be like, which one do I pick up? To be more articulate about it. I think writer, of course. Firstly, it's a great gift. So thank you, God. Because in that sense, I think writing is one of the more innate talents. I think all talents, of course, are in that sense a God gift. But writing, I also feel, is one of the most difficult ones, because, and I'll tell you why, because in most of the other arts, there are already tools to build from. अगर आप singer हो या musician हो, you got सात सुर and rag and the entire pantheon of Western, Carnatic and Hindustani classical to pick from, right? I mean, I'll sit down on a harmonium, even you and I can create something,
Correct.
kuch bajakar, Similarly with dance, if you know mudra and you know rhythm and you know style, all of that, and so on and so on. And same thing with paint, I could pick up and at least there'll be some structure to it. Maybe I'll be very bad, but whatever. With writing, where do you start from? Because it's pure thought first, right? You have to, so what do you have to do? You have to be firstly in flow, because first an idea has to come to you, right? And that, so yeah, actually I'm going through my process now of the more how would I say, intangible variety. That first an idea has to download in you, and is really a download, because often we don't get it very concretized. And then there are times where I say, I know I have the idea, but I don't know it yet. Which means it's literally downloaded in me, but then now I have to process it. So, I have to write it to process it, but I already know it. Kisi ne agar mujhse pucha, to maybe I'll just sit and, start narrating it or something. So it is as intangible as that. Then, of course, it is my skill, and of course, I'm sure you researched, so I've, trained myself in screenwriting, which is a very different kind of writing from poetry or book or whatever. But I mean, there's skill to it, so I know how then to, formulate that and so on and so forth. But really, I think the most beautiful part about writing, which perhaps is also true of the other arts, but I feel like writing gives you that the most, which is balance. Because writing is about structure and flow.
Right.
It has to be कि आपको उतना ही वही flow में और थोड़ा पागलपन में and थोड़ा intangibility में रहना है, फिर उसको structure करना है.
Right.
And it's almost a dance, if you can see,
Yeah.
in my mind. So it's the most beautiful yin yang.
Yeah.
And I think a good writer has to have balance. You
Yeah.
have to. And then there are days when I say, oh, I don't have to say it to somebody, but in my head I know, oh, today I'm a structure person, or today I'm a flow person.
Right.
And then you have to sort of work your day around that.
Right.
So therefore, and actually that's true of most artists, not just writer. Therefore, being an artist and a writer is about having as in being forced to have a relationship with yourself, and then of course the most beautiful one.
Right.
I think that's what the being a writer and artist gives you, is that you got balance, you got structure, flow, you got yin yang, and you're actually in the most amazing relationship with the self, because there is no other way.
Right.
Because that's where it's coming from. So
you're one of the few people who we can actually call as writers. We have, and I think you're being humble about it, that you've learned to write. I think
No,
it's
I have.
important for the audience to understand what your journey has been, because a lot of times the artists, the full-time established artists, call themselves a fluke, or I just landed here. I set out to do something else and I landed here, which is majority of the stories how it goes, but yours is a very structured one. Tell us about your journey.
Well, I hate to break your heart, but mine was also a fluke initially. Let me tell you, let me show you.
Commerce and Lady Shriram, and then Jamia. But from there, the way you have taken.
Yeah, from there, of course, I better be structured. But really, till that point, it was completely not just a fluke, but reaching Jamia was a fluke.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just tell you really as short as possible. So, like I said, I did write my poem, in class 1, and then
tell us what that first poem was.
Yeah, it was called "The World Around Me is a Wonderful Thing," filled with birds having beautiful wings and trees and something, whatever. It was just, yeah.
It's not whatever, it's very beautiful.
I still have it because my mom used to, curate all this stuff, and this, ragged, torn blue diary.
You were 5, 6.
Yeah, and, in my newly learned cursive writing from a convent, I'd just written it, and yeah, I mean, of course, it has the innocence of, whatever, of not just that age, but of the discovery of the fact that I can rhyme.
The novelty of this entire existence.
Yeah,
right?
like, hey, I can rhyme, and then, I can express. So, all of that. So, yeah, so in that sense, I was writing, since the age I could. And in both languages, I was writing in English and Hindi. पता नहीं कहाँ से, बट काफ़ी अच्छी हिंदी थी, और अभी भी हो जाती है जब मैं यूपी जाती हूँ, तो I think that bhasha is sort of innate in you, and of course it's all the literature one was studying and learning, so it came from there. So there was a time when I think just a little later, maybe I was 8 or something, तो मेरी पहली कहानी भी छपी थी हिंदी में.
Wow.
In a magazine called Nandan. It was very popular and famous.
Love it.
Yeah.
Nostalgia.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was doing all that. And then, of course, through various schools, I was, of course, essay writing where, one was doing really well. And yeah, I was creative in the sense, I could I could just put maybe a skit together or whatever. So, ye sab cheezein thi. And then I went to Wellams. And then there, of course, it was, because it's a boarding school and, really India's premier school.
And structure.
Yeah. So, it gave more structure. But then again, I mean, the writing was not some profession or option, not
Yeah.
in our times at any
Yeah.
rate. So, I mean, at that time, one was like, the magazine official or something. And then we used to do cute things like, so we had socials with the Doon School boys. So, every time we had one, I would write a poem about it. And therefore, obviously, be highly judgmental. That was social media then, right? And then somebody from there would write a poem back. And then those were all
Wow.
printed, so that was the level of,
Yeah.
right. And I was also, I used to act a lot, in plays and stuff, like in school and college. So there's a lot of theatre going on. तो ये सब चीजें थी, and yeah, so exactly, you researched well. So I mean, I'd taken commerce, and I was the ISC national topper in commerce. So then that propels you to go further into commerce to say कि अभी तो यही करना है. So then I was BCom honors LSR, and BCom is the highest cutoff of LSR. So of course one had that pride and all that, 96%, and this, that, and the other. But then it was really college and those 3 years that made me feel several things actually. And very relevant to, I think, what we're talking about. I can talk about it really with great ease today. That at that point I suddenly realized that, oh my God, what a pressure I've lived of always standing first and never stood second in my entire life. मतलब it was almost like, हाँ, आप first के नीचे कुछ आ ही नहीं सकते. Not that anybody really put that pressure on me, but it was just there. I mean, not really. I mean, it's around you, your parents, your whatever. सब लोग उसको देखो, वो हमेशा first आती है, वो topper.
वारी जी की बेटी तो
हाँ, yeah, it's really that, exactly. So I walked around with that pride and that whatever, and had a scholarship from Williams because of that, and so on and so forth. So I just had an inner rebellion कि मुझे pressure ही नहीं लेना है. I don't want to be this topper. So I actually really flaked out in the first year of college. I think my poor parents thought I was on drugs or something, because from 96, how do you get 49%?
Wow.
I just wanted to see how it felt. It was really like
but
that.
But that has taken some courage for you to do that.
I was just mad because you're young, you're just 18, 19, and you do, you're meant to do stupid things then. But thank God it wasn't stupider than that, right? Yeah, I just didn't go to class and I did whatever, and I just said, oh, I don't know. I mean, it was so bad that it's in third year college that I realized that the economics book I'm studying from is not even a BCom one. I'm studying from the wrong book. How bad can it get? Okay. So yeah, I just really flaked out academically for just those 3 years. And then discovered this, entire different world, which was basically extracurriculars. I mean, of course, I was doing that in school as well. But I mean, in school, it's a lot more protected and whatever. Not that LSR is highly protected. Where are you even going? But there was it was an inner rebellion. It was like, I don't want to be this person. I want to be this person. And and there, so again, I wasn't really writing there, but everything, you're directing, you're in plays.
You did film direction from?
No, I'm still LSR right now. So this is undergrad. You're still doing so-called BCom, but you're doing everything else except academics.
Osho says that being creative is the biggest form of rebellion that you can do. So you were doing actually that.
Go. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, exactly. So my inner rebellion was creative. So then it left me finally in third year. Two things happened. One was, actually both were very good. So because I reached there, so I said, chalo to fir, let's stand for election. So I was the president of college. And that felt good because then there was a natural leadership that also came up. So you see what happened by then is that I had expressed myself highly creatively and become a creative leader. So in a sense, that is a director, So there was a making of that. But none of that concretized in our head because उस समय ऐसा क्या कुछ कोई option in a way नहीं था. So of course, what you asked me about the fluke part, I was all set to be an IFS officer. Yeah, I was very clear and, all my life because I wanted to travel. So,
right.
And it sounded right. Everybody from UP was doing IAS, so I would be IFS. And then when I reached that point and BCom, so let's do MBA. And then suddenly I felt, no, it's like, academically anyway, I wasn't really going to do well. So suddenly I reached that point where it was a sudden, end of the road. Suddenly, from being such a focused person, I didn't know what to do. So out of pure fluke and out of pure peer pressure, I just went to Jamia because all my friends were going there. So, and some of them are directors today and producers today. And I said, हाँ, पूरा gang जा रहा है, तो मैं भी ये कर लेती हूँ. It's sounding very cool. We had no idea what mass comm meant. It just sounded cool. And because it was an MA degree.
Right.
And it wasn't a diploma or whatever. So I said, yeah, let me do. Now, unfortunately, really sadly, None of my friends got through. I was the only person. So my reason to go there was only like
Yeah.
defeated.
Yeah.
Right? But from there, I thought, nah, I can't keep jumping like this. You know, अब मुझे मार पड़ेगी ऐसे कि अभी वो भी नहीं किया, ये भी नहीं किया अभी. And Jamia is a tough entrance exam, and you know, so many layers. So there, when I settled, so by the way, I'm still not a writer by now.
Sure.
So just to let you know that it was
Sure.
a long winding answer. So in Jamia also, you know, first year we were just having so much fun. And I remember telling my professor, you know, she asked like, you know, why are you here? Everybody had to say it. My contemporary was Barkha Dutt, by the way, and that's another story. But, you know, so like, I think she said something like, I want to be socially relevant. And then, others said all kinds of things. And I say, well, I'm not here to be socially relevant. I'm just being cheeky. But I say, I'm here to have fun. And it didn't sit well with my professor at all. And I said, but why not? Why shouldn't filmmaking be fun? I mean, I'm not talking about faff at all. I'm just saying having fun. So I think I defined myself a little then. And it's only, you know, we were so stupid that it's only in second year that we said, oh my God, we can be filmmakers. हमको तो मालूम ही नहीं था. We thought we were doing something which is actually socially relevant. And because we did radio, we did, street theater, we were doing these street plays all the time and so on and so forth. So it's really after I finished and, diploma film in Jamia and all that. And finally, so yes, very important thing. It is at the end of LSR and when I got through Jamia and then I studied, then I said, you know what? No, academic excellence is important to me. You know, I don't want to be this flaky whatever. I'm not happy with my, finally a 60%. I like being that topper.
Yeah.
You know, I do enjoy it. And now it's not pressure anymore because
Right.
ab wo maine kar liya. So Jamia was a far more organic topping. You know, topping that class was far more enjoyable because it was also through your films and what you wrote and, thesis on this, that and the other. Mine was Khalnaik, by the way.
Oh,
It really is
interesting.
that, yeah. I'll tell you later about how Subhash Ghai reacted to what
Okay.
I said about Khalnaik in my thesis.
Okay.
Right. So all of that and yes, so academic, firstly, excellence mattered. But also, because I feel it's very important for the context of your chat, I realized then that I'm not interested in competition. I'm not interested in winning. I'm interested in excellence. And that's a very different trajectory. And thank God that I realized it that early because that has stood me in good times. And every time I maybe even a little bit deflect from there, I'm reminded already that I set out for excellence. I'm not interested in competing.
Right.
Maybe just by nature, I'm not a very, in that sense, competitive person, but you could look at it as great ego and arrogance as well, and I'm fine with that. But really, I'm interested in excellence and doing my best.
Right.
So that came back with, Jamia. And then just to really cut fast forward all of this, I came to Bombay and, I immediately had a job. And then I was a director for 7 years.
Right.
And so I really turned a full-time writer much later. That was 20 years ago, in 2004.
Right.
And that's when I said, oh, this is Mysore. And even then it was a little reluctant and a bit resentful because that was, by the way, with Sony TV, who gave me a 2-year contract to write television, which I was feeling, I've written films already, why would I, blah, blah. But I'm just so glad. And the person who convinced me was Himesh Reshammiya, out of all the people, and who's amazing, especially as a producer and also as a friend, very, very supportive. So yeah, that's how it concretized into being a writer. So you see, there are many flukes on the way.
Yeah.
But the structured part is just that, I went to Jamia, and then once I took that, I was probably the only person from Jamia at that time who came to Bombay. In fact, people said, Jamia what? And I could just say, Shah Rukh Khan bhi wahan se hai. But Shah Rukh Khan, wasn't really owning up to it.
Right.
And most people, and of course now, thankfully, the industry is full of Jamia.
Yeah.
But most people came, I think, about 5-6 years later. So for the longest time, I was the only person. And then I was the sort of guiding light for whoever came here. Everybody had to come and, ring 80s doorbell and then the rest. Yeah. So.
What I'm hearing from you is a lot of introspection, self-realization. And what's interesting to me is it's a balance. Balance is your favorite word, it seems like. And the balance of being creative and being structured. Finding your way, but also letting yourself explore what can come on the way. Yeah. And the most beautiful of it was intelligence with creativity. Because you accepted your intelligence And that's one of the biggest misconceptions, right? People say if you're an artist, you're just this happy-go-lucky person who does not want to do anything with the world and just
That's a Vairagi, that's not creative. No, that's not an artist.
right.
Yeah.
So how does being creative and being intelligent come together for you, and how does it set you apart? And to this, I think it's very important for us to go into what we were discussing about an artist's brand. So what did become your brand in all this?
Interesting. So firstly, again, see, I feel, I mean, creative and intelligence are not mutually exclusive, right? I mean, creativity comes from innate intelligence. So, but see, now it's like, firstly, how do you define intelligence? And then which Q are you talking about? Is it IQ? Is it EQ? Is it, I have another Q,
SQ?
AQ, but it's not the AQ that everybody talks about. I call it auric quotient.
Okay.
It's your auric intelligence.
Right.
Maybe you can call it higher intelligence, or when you're sixth sense or whatever, when you're psychic like I am, right? So in that sense, so I mean, creativity firstly has to come from intelligence, because I don't know of creative people who are dumb, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, but dumb people who turn creative, though. Yeah, that could also sometimes
To
happen,
tone it
right?
down, what you
Yeah.
mean, what you want to say is, you can't say I don't want to study because I want to be a creative, or I don't want to
Huh.
research because I want to be a creative.
Yeah, okay. So study is slightly different and research is slightly different. Yes, sure. So no, see, I think those are schools of thought.
Right.
So there is, of course, see, creativity, of course, is something. So, okay, again, these are all, definitions and points of view, and people may have a very different way of looking at it. But what is creativity again? Like I said, because we started with the cosmic flow part of it, right? I truly not just believe, it's I experience. And I help people sort of experience the same thing, which is that you are actually just in a way a medium, It's like the broadband, like anytime if there's an award or whatever, I always say, may the force be with you.
Yeah.
Because we are blessed by that force,
Yeah.
right? So that force is flowing through you. Now that is already higher intelligence that's coming from somewhere else. Now it could come from your own higher self, whatever. Then
Sure.
that's your school of thought and stuff, right? Now, interestingly, I'm going to interpret your question like that. You may not have meant it like that, but I think you do. So now in this process, yes, of course, your normal earthly intelligence is of no consequence.
Yeah.
Because yes, in that flow, I have to be in surrender.
Yeah.
I have to be, and so now surrender can be of many kinds. ना I can be, oh, मैं भगवान आपके साथ surrender में हूँ, या अरे मैं I don't care, मैं जिंदगी के साथ निभाता चला गया,
Yeah.
or अरे यार I'm just so stupid only, whatever. See, all of this is surrender. But it's essentially that your earthly mindful intelligence is not coming in the way, because this is the broadband.
Correct.
That's probably what everybody means, because this
Yes.
is our experience.
Right.
And so this can't be different for anybody. This is
Right.
an artist functions only like this if you are a pure artist, and if
Yeah.
you're not just emulating and copying from here and then everywhere, and that's also fine. Right. So I'm saying, so that when that creative broadband happens, now to apply your intelligence, your earthly intelligence to it is structure.
Yeah.
And that's also skill. Right? So in that sense, if your question, so I hope I've answered
Yeah,
part
yes.
one of it.
Yeah.
Now part two of it, that what do I do with my so-called intelligence in it, and did that ever come in the way? Yes and no. No, because thankfully it just, and I'm really sort of, I feel blessed for that. It has never come in the way of creativity, actually, because I think that's the gift I had, because the downloads, like I said, they just happened to me anyway. And at that point, my intelligence is not, because I'm also very trusting. I
Right.
have faith, I'm receptive, so I'm not questioning it. What aa gaya? I like, aha, and then we let it come, and then we'll see what it means.
Yeah.
So that's one part. So so that part is not interfering. And then I guess I'll have to admit it here. Yes, as a child, I did have genius IQ. I was not just supposedly, I saw it myself. I was about 10 points behind Einstein. So I had photographic memory.
Wow.
Yeah, I really I had stuff, and I was a linguist. I could pick up stuff just like that. So yes, there, and hence, like you're always topping and you're always whatever, because with least effort,
Sure.
and I loved academics. Like I loved studying, because it was that curiosity, right? And I mean, like in the summer holidays, I would have read all the books, and then the teacher would say, "Can you just wait for the subject, like that chapter to happen?" Because I was like, "Miss, I was Hermione.
Yeah.
I knew everything." so, so I mean, in that sense, writing was so beautiful because it naturally gave me the balance. I didn't have to do much. I mean,
Right.
all this I've understood later
Right.
by actually going through the process.
Right.
So, so at that point, the idea is coming to me, and then I'm using intelligent structure to say, hey, how do I put skill to it? And that's probably why, touch wood, I've been prolific. I've, done so much work, and that I can jump genres, and therefore I can also teach because there is intelligent structure to it. How it comes in my way is that, of course, it's almost an accusation. Oh, AT, it's so intelligent. Oh my God, it's so evolved. Oh my God, I was like, it's only in India that you're accused of being original and too intelligent.
How
What
can there
is
be a
that?
negative connotation to that?
Yeah, and you're almost expecting me to be apologetic about it, and sort of feel bad. कि आप ऐसे intelligent कैसे हो गए?
Yeah.
अरे ये क्या बात हुई?
Creativity versus intelligence as how the world sees it. I myself have faced this so many times where I've been told, Megha, your poems are a little too heavy on the intelligent side. Can you please dumb it down? So often, a lot of people are made to feel conscious about the fact that they can think a little differently, which might be higher in intelligence or expression or something which is not perceivable by others. Have you faced that in your life? I'm sure you have. And how have you navigated that?
Yeah, well, initially we're highly unconsciously because you're a child and how do you know any better? So again, two parts to that because see, one is the so-called higher intelligence. So I'm not even going to be literal about it right now because higher intelligence is really higher intelligence,
Yeah.
and that's what I meant when I said there's a broad band.
Yeah.
When you're psychic, when you're multidimensional, so that's truly higher intelligence.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, let's say at an IQ level or at a, I understand things faster,
Yeah.
or I, just, in that sense, have a little more intelligence. So, yes, of course, one of my childhood memories, strong ones, would be to always be that slightly isolated child because, hey, she's more intelligent than others. तो वो जो बातें कर रहे हैं वो मुझे इंटरेस्ट ही नहीं कर रही थी और then I would just sit there, read a book, and then everyone had that, that intelligent child. Of course,
Yeah.
somewhere along the way you make it your brand, and I mean, you're a child, how do you know better? But of course, and because I am a part-time therapist as well. I've studied psychology now in a formal way. So of course, when I go to my inner child, state and all that, I understood that at that point, and that may be true for others, I have associated intelligence with social alienation. That the more intelligent you will be, आपके friends फिर नहीं होंगे. So yes, of course, there's, like I told you about my, the whole inner rebellion in college and even later, and other, social dimensions. Of course, I've, tried to be my dumber self or just say, यहाँ ज़्यादा intelligent नहीं sound करते हैं, यहाँ मतलब चुप रहते हैं, मतलब to be dumb is also a little difficult in that sense. तो आप चुप रह जाओ, या basically, it's not so much about dumbing down. It's about making yourself smaller so that the other person doesn't feel threatened, so that you have friends. You know, I mean, I love my friends. I have great friends, but in that social circle, so you're not socially alienated. So yes, of course, that's been one part. I mean, that's a very deep and a big part of anybody's journey, like that. And the other, which is a lot more professional, is that which we were talking a little earlier, is that. So obviously the commerce part, as in the commercial part, comes into it. That I mean, in some sense, I don't blame them, but the gatekeepers of media would so often say, "Oh, let's dumb this down. Logo samajh mein nahi aayega. Or it won't be relatable, whatever." But it's true, and I mean, I say it with great elan that any time I've been just allowed to tell my story, it's worked. And it's worked in any genre. So the point is that I am not being that overtly intellectual. So I think the distinction here is intelligence and intellectual. So obviously I'm intelligent enough to know to not be intellectual if I'm trying to, make stuff which is supposed to be mainstream. But non-intellectual doesn't mean unintelligent. No,
Correct.
I think that's where the problem has always been, and of course I battle it till today. And so yes, of course there was a just like the social alienation part, there was a time in professional circles also I would be like, oh okay, let's not be so out there and let's not express so much. And of course I could never take dictation and I could never say कि हाँ हाँ वही करते जो आपको चाहिए, but I would still not express myself that much, to then realize it's not working because the show's not going to work and I'm not working, I'm not happy. So what's the point, right? And that's when this realization happened, that anytime I'm allowed to express myself completely, it's working because that energy has reached the audience,
Yeah.
right? So there so therefore by today, I would say that, I mean, much earlier than now, but definitely concretized today, is that I wear it on my sleeve. Yes, if you're calling me, you will get some degree of, intelligence. And that because I think I've delivered enough commercial hits to say, how else will we raise the bar if you don't, at least push the envelope a little and don't think that the audience is so dumb.
Right.
They will receive their children. See, in the creative state, we're all in childlike state. We are creating and receiving. So we will receive whatever you give, right?
Right.
So allow me to give that, allow me to have that. And yeah, I mean, it's always a battle, but I win a lot of times. So
It is interesting because now that you have what 40 plus under your in your
kitty.
kitty, how did it start? You said your first job was very interesting. I want to go back to that and just trace that journey again, and let's talk about that.
Sure. So my first job, of course, wasn't as an independent creative artist. It was like anybody else. It was an assistant's job. But yeah. So in fact, I'm glad you asked me, because I think from there I got myself a brand in my head, which also concretized later. But it's so important, and for anybody watching, I think this might give you something. So I came with my money plant and faith, from Delhi. Like I finished Jamia last night, and today I was in Bombay. Just took that train. Thankfully, my parents were here at that time. My father was posted here for some reason. So I had a house, and that's all. And I had no contacts per se, but the same friends for whom I had joined Jamia, they had all come to Bombay. They were all in Sophia's and wherever. So that's a 1-year course. So they were already working. So I knew that Plus Channel is a place that, hires new people. But I mean, these are non-cell phone days, right?
Yeah.
Just before, like I think 6 months before cell phones came. So
Right.
we were still landline
Wow.
days. We didn't have a landline. So I went down to Kirani ki dukan and had a Film India from somewhere. And I literally just, looked up. So I said, oh, Plus Channel, yay. That's where my friends are. So I called them up, and of course, that time people received landlines. So,
Yeah.
so the receptionist said, Bombay has such a cute, tradition. Anuradha from? What they mean for me to say from which company
Yeah.
or wherever, announce yourself.
Yes.
So I didn't know. I just said Delhi. So they presume great English language skills. They thought I'm calling from Delhi. So
Right.
they instantly connected me to Amit
STD.
Khanna. Yeah. So they instantly connected me to the boss, thinking that I'm the Anuradha from the Delhi branch. I suspect it's Anuradha Sengupta, the very famous, CNBC and whatever, such a famous journalist.
Yeah.
So I suspect it was her that he thought. And so whatever. And now Amit just thought that I was whoever that other Anuradha, and he just blew me up for something, wrong, whatever. So I heard him out, and then I said, I'm sorry, you got the wrong Anuradha. And so I think, again, gentleman that he is, he just felt very embarrassed. So he said, okay, fine, when you come in the evening. So, I landed up, I had to go from Kandivali to Juhu. I had no idea. I didn't know Bombay at all.
Yeah.
So I got lost. I reached 1 hour late and whatever. So I thought, ye job to milne hi nahi wala. So, and then I was made to wait at the reception also. So I had no clue what I was doing there. I was just there, because Amit Khanna said. And then after 1 hour, they said, yeah, sure, you walk in. So when I walk in, and of course, I've said this in many interviews, so I literally have it pat like a narration. So, when I walked in here into this room, here on the left was Amit Khanna standing very casually and like, whatever, some newbie. And right in front of me is a Mahesh Bhatt, who's a partner, business partner in Plus Channel. Now, this is very funny. Now we have to, pause the picture here and rewind.
Okay.
Pause. Rewind to maybe a month ago, back in Jamia. Now we are so full of cinema, right? We are like, Kislovsky and, Truffaut and Fellini and all of that. And now this film called Gentleman has come out, Mahesh Bhatt. And for some reason, I do these strange prophetic things. I said, oh my God, this person, he has sold his soul. He was so great earlier. मैं तो उसके साथ कभी नहीं काम करूँगी. Why do I have to declare that, right? So I just said that. And all my friends have heard me out. I was like, yeah, no, this is trash, this is such, whatever, all that. And now I've entered, so cut back, pause, and there's Mahesh Bhatt. Yeah, he's right there. Now, I don't know what reaction to have. So, I just walk in. And then Mahesh Bhatt in his, characteristic style sits there with his, black shirt and with his, hand on his head like that. And he says, who are you? I said, Anuradha Tiwari. And he said, great. Are you any good? And, and that's when, I want to talk about this, brand audacity was born. And I said, no, I'm brilliant. And he said, great, you're hired. So that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, I was hired already. So I just entered his day 1 in Bombay or day 2. And I'm hired. I said, oh, okay, should I sit down? He said, okay. Such a vague conversation. So I sat down and now we've had a 1-hour chat about this, that and the other. Of course, I don't have the heart to tell him, sir, I rejected you just 1 month ago. Right? And of course, he's a very intelligent man and he's amazing. He's nurturing. He's so supportive and all that. So we had this, that and the other. And Amit is just one, bystander. He's just like watching us and, listening and putting his 2 bits in and whatever. It was amazing. And then I finally said, okay, can I go? So he said, okay, great. Can you start from tomorrow? I said, no, I've just come to Bombay. I need a week. He said, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I said, अच्छा sir, ma'am, ठीक है भाई, अब आप एक हफ्ते बाद आ जाइए. And then I walked out and I said, oh, excuse me, sir, I'm so sorry, but can you tell me how much I'll get paid? Because nobody's talked to me about money. And then, finally he had that look like, aren't you bloody pushing this now? Like,
right.
Baby, just go home. You have no fucking idea like what happened to you. So he said, yeah, come and talk to HR like, when you come next week. So I was like, yeah, okay, fine. Now this 1 week has been amazing because now I have a job in Bombay. This is associate director to Mahesh Bhatt for a film that's going to start in 1 month, which is, as we all know, is stuff that people will kill for, even today.
Yeah.
And at that time, this is prime, this is gold, right?
Yeah.
But no, I have sailed out saying, oh my God, it's Mahesh Bhatt, I just reject. How can I work with him? I cannot. So from this Monday to the next, I have 1 week to figure out another job. Okay.
Wow.
So I've gone to other directors who I have wanted.
Right.
Like I've gone to Mansoor Khan, who's amazing, but he said, oh, just the luck. He said, oh, I'm doing TV right now. Would you like to do TV? I'm like, no. Then I've gone to, I kept trying. So then I went to Shyam Benegal, sir. And he was, of course, beautiful. And he said, so this is Jan. And he said, but I'm starting film in December. And I said, sir, I have a job with Mahesh. He said, what's wrong with you? He's an amazing guru, whatever. So, but I thought he's just saying it to, SAJ, Dil Rakhne ke liye. And throughout all this, almost like a parallel track, I'm going on trying Rajkumar Santoshi. I kept trying his landline and they kept saying, sir, na rahe. So finally, after the 5th time, I said, I think sir ko bukhar ho jayega, unko baat bulao. Na rahe.
Wow.
It was rude, but I think he just banged the phone on me or something. So all this kept happening, and now I've reached Saturday or something. The stress is I don't have an alternate job to like being Mahesh Bhatt's associate, which I was like, oh my God, how can I do this? So then I met again, a very really well-known writer then already, Sanjay Chhel, who was later director as well. Now, I knew him because I'd interned with Saeed Mirza 1 year before that, just through Jamia. So he found me from somewhere. He said, "Hey, Anuradha, kya kariye?" And all that. It's so sweet. And there's this sort of all-embracing feel of Bombay.
Yeah.
And the safe feel of Bombay, right?
Yeah.
So he actually took out time. He met me in some restaurant and I told him, and then he said, come, we'll go to Juhu Beach. And we're walking there. And then he's telling me, so I told him, so he said, Anuradha, what is wrong with you? Like, why would you not want to take this up? So I was like, but I want to work with Mani Ratnam. So he's looking at me. Is Mani Ratnam in Bombay? No. But you are in Bombay. So what is your thinking, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm feeling a bit dumb here. So he explained that, see, in Bombay, what's very important, and this is important for a viewer because it's relevant till today. He said it's very important to have, firstly, a sort of a brand, but a sort of like a camp or like somebody that you belong to, Do you have a stamp on you? That's the word he used.
Right.
And he said assisting a director is that stamp. Especially at that time because, Jamia what? Who cared?
Right.
And again, we can have another discussion on it. I was probably one of the fewest women on a set.
I was going to
right?
come to that. Yeah.
So I mean, the anomaly of it all. So he just said,
How empowering it would have been.
yeah, but see, it's all
You didn't realize that.
unconscious. I don't care. I've just come from Delhi saying, "Oh my God, I need another job because hey, I'm brilliant." And I don't want to do age, but look at me, right? So I do all of that. And then on that Sunday, I finally call up my Jamia friends. You see, there's a lot of peer pressure in your
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
So I call up my Jamia friends and say, yeah, and everyone's like, whatever, still struggling or figuring out whatever. And I said, hi, yaar, Mahesh. What? Mahesh, oh my God, like how you sang? I said, oh wow, there's validation here. So that Monday I showed up, at like 9 o'clock. फिर मैं जल्दी पहुंच गई वहाँ पे.
Right.
It's funny because then some people were leaving from last night. So you reach too early. You
You're
don't go
too
at 9
early.
o'clock
Yeah.
in a media office.
Right.
So I said, it's fine. I'll wait now today and whatever. And Mahesh Bhatt came probably at 4 o'clock or something. But that's how it
And did that change your mindset or the conviction that you had about how you saw the world versus being a little open to how things actually could be?
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, anybody who's worked with Mahesh Bhatt knows how lucky they are. Because here is a virtual guru, especially at that time because nobody else was, we didn't have social media. So, and we didn't read Osho quotes. So he was our Osho quote.
Yeah.
Although he left Osho by then. And so here's a person who's been through the depths of it, and has come out of it, has found his own philosophy, whether you agree with it or not, and is so bloody supportive, and is in fact so bored of the filmmaking process that he's like, please, like, can you take over?
Right.
So I mean, it cannot be more precious than that, right? That someone is saying, of course, I believe in you and your talent, you please go ahead and do it. And also almost hoping that my cynicism might be washed off by you because you seem so sprightly and so like whatever, right? It cannot be better than that. Everything will be downhill from there because it's the best sort of flight you can take.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So of course, I mean, I did understand the sort of advantage and the privilege of it already once. I mean, I think on day one and day two itself, because when you're interacting with an energy like that, you already know.
Sure.
And then slowly, you've already spoken to other people on the phone, right? And otherwise, you met them, so you start getting that sense.
Right.
And then, it just got better and better from there in terms of understanding. And to just cap this part, everything he told me then made sense to me 20 years later.
Wow.
Because then I had to go through it to say, oh yeah, that's what he said. Oh, of course, that's what he meant. Oh, why did I argue with him? Of course, he was right, And in some things, I feel like, so I think I was right here. So I have these mental conversations. I may not have met him for 4 or 5 years, but I have these conversations all the time. Yeah.
You're one of the few people who can answer this question of two parts to this again. I think we are doing a lot of two parts today. Director turned writer. How did that happen? How did it help you being a writer by being a director before? But more importantly, I want to know from you, what is the writer-director dynamics? Because your story, somebody else is bringing out and giving it life. So how does that pan out?
Right, yeah, two totally different questions.
Yeah.
And sure. So I'll try and remember all parts of it. So, director turning writer, yeah, usually it's the other way around, right?
Yeah.
Like writers are turning directors. So in that sense, I already shared the Mahesh Bhatt story with you, and then of course, definitely blessed and lucky in that sense. So on that same film, Papa Kehte, Anupam Kher discovered me, and he had just started his company, media entertainment company. And I think he was in an expansion plan just then. So he just thought that, I was audacious enough and I was young enough,
There comes brand audacity.
That's right. Yeah, we can touch upon that, in just a bit. And so I think that brand audacity kind of worked for him really well. And he almost kidnapped me from that film and from being an assistant. And, sort of made me an offer I couldn't refuse. He literally spoke like Godfather and says, I'll make you an offer you can't refuse, which was basically a lot of money, for someone that young. And to head his company, So that's how I just, almost like just stumbled upon it in a way. I mean, I didn't have any such thought. I was an assistant and obviously I thought I'll make my film someday and there was no grand plan to it just yet. And he was a man who was saying, no, come head my company and actually help me, sort of creatively set it up, etc. And then, of course, that was deliriously, sort of heady, because I was at that time, that's what a creative director was called when you headed a company. So I was his creative director. We had 9 shows on air at some point, and the directors who, of course, they were not reporting to me or any such thing, but who were sort of collaborating with me, and I was, supervising all of that, was Imtiaz Ali, and Ravi Rai, and Vivek Agnihotri was our CEO, and Shirish Kundar was an assistant then, and Praval Ravan, so it's that time, or Anurag Basu or whoever. So at that time, and then of course, then Anupam just felt, let's just go ahead and just direct whatever. And again, how lucky for someone to I'm not just Anupam saying that sure, go and direct, because of course he saw that in me. But again, brand audacity worked really well then, because I had the most out of box ideas, and just wanted to up it all there. And because I think at that time also I was talking to a global audience in my head, but I was making stuff for people here, so how would that even match? But how amazing that people supported me then. Whether it was a Star Plus, which had people, Sameer Nair and Deepak Sehgal, who are now heading Applause, or a Shailja Kejriwal, or Ravina, who was heading Sony then, and they all just allowed me. So my first show was a silent serial, and it was a strip. It came half an hour before The World This Week every day. No, it came, I don't know, maybe it was a 5 minute or something. And then all of it together became a half an hour at the end of the week. It was really out of the box.
Incredible.
Now, this is all, of course, before the dailies came in.
Sure.
I'm talking about 97 and all that.
Sure.
And then my second show was a live action animation show. I don't know anything about animation. And I remember meeting the legendary Bhim Sen. He's like the father of 2D animation. He says, oh, you're directing this beta. Do you know anything about animation? I said, no, sir, but you do. आप करोगे, मैं तो बना रही हूँ. So, one did all of that. So in that sense, and then, I kept doing that, and then I made all these heavy duty pilots. Actually, at that time, that was the norm. You made a pilot, and making a pilot itself was a very big deal.
Yeah.
And you got commissioned for it. And so I remember I made one. I mean, what a star cast I had! I had Ashish Vidyarthi, I had Madhavan, I had Prashant Narayanan, and Suchitra Pillai, and all of that, and that was intellectual. A bit like Swades, by the way. Yes, about a scientist who came back to India to, much before Swades happened. And his issues with his sons. That was like that. And the other one, again, what a great star cast I had. I had Javed Jafri and I had Makhran Deshpande. And it was, I'm not going to give out that idea, but it was basically based in a mental asylum.
Okay.
It was a total trippy comedy. So, I was making stuff like that, and why I'm mentioning all this. So I remember, so then those pilots, they were about to be commissioned. And in fact, one of my producers, no more, and I'm just very heavy-hearted about that. It was my friend Payal Mukherjee, who happens to be Maushami Chatterjee's daughter. And she was one of my first producers. And, so everybody supported and just said, oh, wow, we are really like cutting edge and all that. And suddenly come the dailies. This is 2001 now. And
what does the new it changed?
And like, 180 degrees. And I remember, thank God again, I had a Ravina who just called me and said, babe, your stuff is 10 years ahead of its time. Of course, now I realize it was 20 or 25 actually. But she was right. And also because, so actually now I'll come to the main point. I realized that the stories I wanted to tell as a director were not really going to happen. Firstly, that was one instinct. And that, they're just not matching the mass psyche here.
Right.
So thank God I got supported earlier, whatever niche, audience I had before that. And then it wasn't going to happen. So thankfully I didn't even struggle on it after that. I just said, ye meri jagah hi nahi hai, yahan karna hi nahi hai. So by then I'd actually converted to some writing already. I'd already been part of my first few films. I'd written Rahul for Prakash Jha, and I was part of Yadein, which was again a delirious experience. I love it, and I can write a book on it. So so
you
all of
must.
that, yeah. So all of that happened, and then I was meant to actually direct a film right then. And look at the other people who were signed with me, the Neeraj Pandey and Kabir Sadanand and all that. And unfortunately, that producer couldn't, put stuff together. So, and he did make a film with Anand Balani, the late Anand Balani, which of course initially I was resenting it so much. But when you see someone who just passed away like that, you say, thank God he made his film.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay, I'll make mine whenever, right? So yeah, so it is a very big moment in my journey at that point. So then I started getting a sense that, you know, the stories I want to tell, they're not going to be told now. The world has changed dramatically. I must actually share this anecdote with you know, all of you also. I think that I didn't realize it then, but there was that moment I remember when one day, you know, my mom had come to stay with me and we were sharing the room, and she suddenly said, she was very restless. I said, "Kya hua?" So she said, "Beta, tulsi ka kya hoga?" So I remember feeling very betrayed to say, "What do you mean tulsi ka kya hoga? What do you mean?" She said, "No, but so you know, I was just like mean and rude, and I just said, Mom, that's Smriti Irani, and she's just acting and you know whatever, and this, you know, just being that." But she had the
Intellectualized it.
most stellar answer. She said, "But beta, kahani mein to aisa hua na." And I had no answer to that. She was my mother, remember? Very mother. So she shut me up there, but I said, "Oh my God, it has percolated
Reached
here.
the-
If my mother is feeling like this, then
Yeah.
this is storytelling." So again, I wasn't so articulate about it then, but I think I had that survival instinct to say,
Sure.
okay, this ain't going there. And that's when, so yeah, and actually, yeah, I mean, I had many parallel journeys. At that time, I was also heading a lot of companies.
Right.
That was a big part of my journey.
You were a creative business strategist.
That's right. For one company, that was part of a .com company. Then I was the national creative director for Crest Communication. I'd headed Channel V by then. So वो सब भी बहुत सारी चीजें हो गई थी. So I'd been a director, I'd been, you know, head of companies, and then I got a sense. So two things happened. One was that I felt my stories were not going to be told now, and then I said, sure, so that I can still be heading companies. And I said, no, that was a big one. I said, no, I can't be sitting being a chair. I can't be a visiting card. No, that's not what I came here for. So I may not be directing my films, but I have to be known for my creative output. So I just quit on an instinct. You know, I just quit my job. And of course, I was jobless for 6 months, and that was a great test of faith. But not then. That time, you are just brand audacity is going here, there, everywhere. Great faith, and of course, some degree of depression and all of that. But you know, you don't realize all that. You're still too young. And, you know, bravo to that, and great that you do it when you're young. And then came the writing offer, which I mentioned earlier when Himesh Reshammiya came. So of course, I had mixed feelings, and I said, you know, TV and whatever. But then, hello, Sony Entertainment Television is giving you a contract for 2 years, you know, and all of that. So you're not going to just be stupid and say no to that either, especially if you've been jobless for a while.
Yeah.
So I think it was a mix of a lot of practicality to say, okay, you know, life seems to be, you know, nudging me here. Of course, I'd waited for my film, and that didn't happen, and you know, the heartbreak on that, all that was also over. So that's when I decided to make the switch, really step by step, to just say, okay, let's see how this feels, and then the rest is history. Because then, of course, you know, I found my voice there much more, and you know, again, that support that I had initially in my career, I found that back. And for a lot of the same people, obviously, I was working with them again, and they were, you know, more supportive as a writer. Of course, brand audacity reached other levels, you know.
But I will caution the audience here, when you say brand audacity, you don't mean being arrogant, or you don't mean just going ahead without any plan in your mind. You know your brand.
Absolutely. And I will, let's explore that, and maybe in just the next question, because it says, of course, audacity is very different from arrogance, and arrogance has ego and can be very stupid. Audacity is rebellion. That's different. You know,
based on confidence.
It's David versus Goliath. That's different. So yeah, we'll talk about that. But I'm just saying that, so you know, so when I came into it as a writer with that audacity intact, I felt instinctively that this was a good space for me. It was a safe space for me. I think I had a sense that I think I would get a fair degree of success here. And that my voice might be more unfiltered here than trying to struggle with those same stories, which I anyway not going to happen. It's 10 years to ahead, you know, 25 years ahead. So yeah, so that was one switch. I will quickly cover the next 2 points. But it took me just a little longer to understand. And I think that's a spiritual journey. And again, we can have a long conversation on that another time. is that as a writer, initially also I was just presenting my idea, my thought, and that's more a director's job. So that might answer your other question.
Yeah.
A director leads, obviously. It's not like a writer doesn't lead. A writer's creating the blueprint, right? You're the architect. But I think by nature, a writer's job, especially when you are with somebody else, like a director or whoever, is to surrender, is to give. And that's feminine energy.
Beautiful.
And that was amazing. You know, when I realized that, and that's the shift I have to make. I mean, I can safely say it was through the film Yade, because you know the Mr. Guy and I, of course, I mean, we had a lot of creative differences, but I mean, an amazing gentleman, so much respect, and you know.
And what a beautiful film.
Oh, thank you. If you think so,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we had our differences and all that. But post that journey, I said no. You know, I must learn to have that. And that's what I'm really doing as a writer. I have to be a giver. So it was a much deeper shift, actually.
Beautiful.
Oh, it wasn't just directed to writer. It was from masculine to feminine energy,
Wow.
and you know, and has continued actually and gone into other levels. So therefore, then I think I've answered the
Yeah.
second part is that, like I said, it's a balance.
Balance.
You know, there's masculine, there's feminine, and then you balance it too.
Brand audacity. I think it's such an interesting concept, if you will, but it needs caution for the
Sure.
audience, because I don't want people to get confused between audacity and arrogance,
True.
or where does the confidence come, where does the
Right.
conviction come. Talk to us about
Right.
that.
Sure. So, you know, of course, I've coined it all in retrospect only. And so, yeah, so I will talk about what it really means, and the cautionary part of it as well. So, you know, since I mentioned it earlier in my little anecdotes, so, you know, again, two parts to it. So, the thing was that it was very unconscious for me. I think I was that person, I still am. Obviously, over the years, you know, that part of you changes, hopefully for the better. It evolves in some way, or you know, जिसको हिंदी में बोलते तराशना हो जाता है. But I think there was a certain audacity in me all my life. Now, what does audacity mean? So that you know, we talk about it. Of course, it's semantics, but it's also
Sure.
thought.
Yeah.
So arrogance basically means when I'm trying to put somebody down. Right? Basically, I have a natural sense of superiority. Oh, you know, I'm better than you. Now, to me, that is antithetical. I have an inherent problem with anybody acting superior. I don't care if there's the heads of some state or what. I just don't, because to me, that's innate Buddhist thinking that everybody is equal at some level. And I have an abhorrent problem with anyone using any excuse to sound superior or to be
Yeah.
superior.
Yeah.
The sound is okay, it's just sound. But you know, just to be, I really have a problem with that. So therefore, it's not arrogance at all. Audacity is to basically say, firstly, it's a certain rebellion, of course, to say that I don't fall into the conventional box. If you thought I'd act a certain way, well, I'm not going to do it. So there is a defiance there. There's something a little childish there, right? And it's a teenagery there. But audacity also means that you take a punt, right? You say कि हाँ होगा ये trend, but मुझे ये करना है. So I feel audacity also means courage.
Correct.
You know, so it's very different from arrogance actually.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about putting anything down. It's in some sense it's a cause. It's to say, yeah, I know, yeah, I understand, but it's faith.
Yeah.
To say, no, I have a way of doing it differently to still get you to where you want to.
Yeah.
Right? So therefore, the ability to stand out in a crowd. And hence, audacity, I think, also means the courage to entirely be yourself. You know, to just say, this is who I am. And I don't have a problem standing out. And I don't have a problem even being judged for it, because I know I'm right. And that knowing is not arrogance at all. It's not saying, oh, I know, you know. It's like, I know. You see the shift in
Yeah.
my tone. I know, you know.
That's so
because-
liberating.
Yeah, because I have it from a higher source, see. So, and I'll talk about hope and faith as well, you know, because
Yeah.
you're quoting it in a different way. So I'm saying that is brand audacity. So now, so when you come with that, that's like, you know, the Hebrew word for it is chutzpah. You know, to just say, so of course, कभी-कभी उसमें एक खनक होगी, उसमें कभी थोड़ी बदतमीजी हो सकती है, दूसरे को लग सकती है ना
Sure.
बदतमीजी. You know, I mean, if you sit in front of a megalomaniac, जिसके सामने सब लोग हाँ सर बोलते हैं, उसके सामने आप बोले, no sir, but I don't think so. उसको तो ये बदतमीजी ही लगेगी.
Perspectives.
You know, it is. I understand that.
Yeah.
And earlier, I would enjoy it too. But Now I understand why would I want to trigger such a person. Please, sir, if you have a problem, I'm not trying to create one. But that's so audacity is also thinking out of the box.
Right.
Now it comes from confidence, yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it comes a little deeper from faith. That's when it's truly audacious, right? And so now coming back to why I coined this word at all, and this I really want to share with all the viewers. All artists, whether you're an actor, director, writer, singer, musician, whatever. See, most people come, especially to Bombay City and to or to any industry. I was sharing that with a friend earlier also today. They come with the fact, I have a dream, I have this hunger, I have whatever. So what happens? The person in front, if I'm the director, if I'm the producer, I'm actually unconsciously thinking, why the heck am I interested in your dream?
In your dream, yeah.
Why should I be funding your whatever? I don't care. So you have come with the wrong brand.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas what should you be doing? You should be coming and telling me, if I'm the producer or director, writer, whatever, is that, hey, I'm good with this. So I bring this to the table.
This is my voice.
This is my voice. So then as a producer, I say, हाँ यार, इसमें कुछ दिख रहा है. So I think I should be able to use this to, then make a business out of it. And I'm not saying use in a bad way at all.
Sure.
In a good commercial way. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that when you come, it doesn't matter. Of course, you're a newcomer here. That's why you come here. Of course, you don't have experience. But do you have a brand? And that brand is not dependent on, whether you have PR or you're an influencer or whatever.
Or a marketing background.
Or marketing, or nothing. It's your brand. Who are you? I think it's sacrosanct to come, with that as an artist, right? Especially.
Right.
I can't speak for other professions. I can only say artist. So now coming back to brand audacity, see, it was unconscious. I didn't think about it. Of course, I was blessed with that. So what is a brand? A brand is a recall value, right?
Yeah.
If I think of X writer or director, I should be able to say, that person in this space.
Yeah.
Right? That's brand recall.
Yeah.
That's true of an actor also.
Yeah.
You might be a newcomer, but suppose I say, oh, that person with that feel, then I'm going to cast that person. It doesn't matter whether he's done something or not, right? So to me, that was my brand then. I was brand audacity. Right? I know, like I said, nobody coined it then. But I understand today that that's what people saw in me then. And that's why, whether it's a Mahesh Bayer or Swali, whoever, all the people who were supporting me, they really went with my audacity and said, hey, let's punt on this. Hey, let's support this. Because, there's a certain innocence there also. So, and of course, in the middle, if my life were a 3-act structure, like everybody's is, that was my act 1.
Mm-hmm.
There's a long act 2 in which perhaps, I may not have been audacious. I may have been defiant, or I may have been angry, or, whatever, resentful sometimes, and so many things. I think when you are older at this stage, you come back to that brand, or at least I did. And I think today brand audacity is very different, right? Obviously, it has a lot more maturity to it.
Right.
Obviously, I have a lot of experience. Thankfully, I have some degree of success, so I can, sort of assert and say, hey,
right.
This is what I mean. So yeah, this is what I'm trying to say about audacity. So today, again, when I'm back to that brand in a much more conscious, concrete way, I would say, and which I think is the point of this lovely chat as well, is that being able to say that, yes, of course, we understand there are trends and whatever, but hey, anyway, trends don't work. They're not working, So how about just taking that punt, and how about stepping out of that box to really, really be authentic and, and put it out there.
Right.
That's what I meant by brand audacity.
This is so beautiful and amazing because you have made the journey sound so easy while it was difficult.
Sure.
And people romanticize struggle or difficulties, but you have said, hey, if you are clear and if you know who you are and if you know what your brand is as an artist, you will find a way, or if not, you will make a way.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Let me just reiterate that exactly. I think that's why I started the conversation with that, as an artist, you're cursed and blessed to have a relationship with yourself. You have to. So therefore, if you made that brand already, that it will find its way.
Yeah.
You are that singer whose voice will be heard. If not today, then tomorrow there'll be some stage somewhere that will put the spotlight on you. For sure.
Some people would maybe try to intellectualize it, but it would actually be an excuse by saying as an artist, you need to be versatile. For example, as a writer, you need to write different things, or as an actor, you should be ready to do whatever. How to not confuse with this brand as an artist with this versatility of skills?
By when you say brand, are you still talking about brand audacity
Yeah.
like we were talking about?
Yeah.
No, I think they're two totally different things because versatility is a very different thing, and of course, I'd love to talk about that too. No, see, audacity is a sort of an attitude.
Yeah.
Versatility is a skill or a
Right.
talent. So then they're different, right? So in terms of audacity, it's the attitude with which you're living life. So I mean, most people who know me know that. That's how I live my life. I've always lived my life like that, but I embrace it more consciously now. When it comes to versatility, I think, see, so some people, of course, are either gifted being versatile to some degree, but I think it comes with a lot of craft.
Right.
So when you know your craft really well, you are bound to be versatile.
Yeah.
Because it's very simple. When I give you the analogy, when you're trained, let's say in classical music, right? आपको सारे राग आते हैं. तो then you know कि आप दरबारी भी गा सकते हो, आप भैरवी भी गा सकते हो, आप यमन भी गा सकते हो, right?
Right.
That's what they mean by genres.
Correct.
Similarly, if you see, like, I love the dancers in any choreographer's thing, right? You put them in different clothes and suddenly somebody will do salsa, suddenly वो कत्था कर लेते हैं, whatever. That's versatility because they know their footwork.
Yeah.
So it's the same as a writer. If you know your craft, you will be versatile. If you don't, then perhaps you are, or no, I mean, I have nothing against those who have one certain brand of storytelling. They're very good with that only. That doesn't make them any lesser as an artist.
Sure.
I'm very good with that too. But that's my answer about versatility, which is different from audacity. You could be versatile and not be audacious at all.
Sure.
And you could be very audacious and have one tone.
Right.
You know.
Sure. So, voice of artist is this world that we are imagining where art is above chart.
Right.
So we want to believe, and we truly believe that you make art for the sake of making art, not to top charts. Of course, in the process of your topping charts, we will celebrate it. With that context, if there were no pressure of charts, what kind of stories would you write and tell and share?
So, Megha, I have to start by I'm sorry, I'm going to harp on this a little bit right now. Brand audacity, you just
Please,
come up with in this conversation, is that I anyway don't live by that pressure. Honestly, and most people know that. And I think sometimes that's their problem.
Right.
That, how come this person is just not taking that pressure only? Well, she's not serious about it. Or, I mean, they're not articulating it, but they're like, oh my God, maybe we're in danger because she's just not taking that pressure. So, I don't take that pressure of the market, and I definitely don't take the pressure of someone trying to be authoritative with me. People know that. Right?
Sure.
I am just floating with the fact that my struggle, and I'll say this very strongly again to the writers, especially watching this. See, your struggle and battle is with the story. Because that's going to be a huge process. It's not going to just come to you.
Yeah.
You're going to battle with every day. Kabhi aap soch rahe ho, aa raha hai, nahi aa raha hai, whatever. So I'd rather park my battle there. Why should I be battling this?
Choose your battles.
So but literally.
Yeah.
So I walk into a room saying, hello, I'm not taking this only. It's not my pressure. Right? So in that sense, I am constantly creating out of non-such pressures.
Yeah.
My pressures, like I said, my only job and my only dharma is to come up with a sound story.
Right.
Because the structure must be right. Like I said, I call myself a story engineer, sometimes a story surgeon. It has to be sound, and that's my dharma, it's my job. I'm only interested in that. Having said that, I think today, after, of course, all the experience and just really some degree of success, of course, I'm responsible. Of course, I'm not here to be on some personal trip or to be intellectual about it. Of course, I want it to work. I wanted to work, not just that X should make money. Of course, that's the thing. I wanted to work because, hello, if I am putting in so much effort, I want the largest number of people to receive from my story.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's really my only pressure that, did it reach my audience? Did that messaging and also, I mean, I'm going to say it here, and that's really just my personal thing. Everybody doesn't have to do it. I believe that storytelling is the strongest power, tool in the world, right? Like now different professions are using it. So it's, again, I feel personally my dharma to embed the right messaging in it. Everything I know,
I'm so glad that you said that.
No, really, I've been doing this consciously now forever.
It's like pen
Uh,
is mightier than sword. You actually
yeah, I
believe in
really
that.
believe that, and thank God that some of that work found success. For example, like fashion,
Yeah.
or even like heroin, or the other stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like embedding that messaging is so much more important to me. So my pressure is only that did I articulate it correctly for it to reach the audience,
Hmm.
and not just ki mere jaise types. It
Right.
should reach the audience that it's meant to, because if it reaches just you're already converted. I'm
Right.
talking to the convert. What's the point?
Right.
It must reach somebody. Like I'm telling you today, just one of my shows, called Rising Honey versus Rising Honey on Sony Live. It has its own following and all that. But there are people on Twitter who would say, somebody from Gorakhpur, my native town, he said, ma'am, I just want to tell you, this is a story that is pushing us to think beyond our limits.
How beautiful.
And we will remember this for being a little different. To me, this is success. Honestly, it's not a hollow whatever. To me, this is my Oscar, because this is what I do. This is why I do this for. So that's my pressure. That did I do that correctly?
Right.
मैंने अपने धर्मा को follow किया कि नहीं?
Anuradha, if there were no pressure of chats, what stories would you write?
So yeah, having said all of that, I don't really take commercial pressures anyway, or the pressure of some setup or some whatever team or whatever, or some boss, or all of that. Having said that, of course, so there are market realities. There are some things, there are budgets. There are, I know, the kind of support, will I get that or not, and of course also just viewer understanding, how many people and all of that. So I am of course guided by that. I'm not pressurized by it, but I'm guided by it. If I were to put all that aside, I'm actually already writing the stories and touching wood on that. Is that I think like my interest is firstly in talking to a global audience. I think finally that time has come where I know the world is very ready for Indian stories,
Yeah.
but India doesn't seem to be still very ready about talking to the world for some reason. I understand, because those are market pressures still, and people are still figuring it out. So yeah, those are really stories I'm interested in. So I'm interested in two parts again to it. uh, they're related. So, part one being that I'm interested in stories which are global in perspective but Indian at heart.
Mm-hmm.
That they have a universal theme to it, or a universal appeal to it. But there's something so Indian and so native about it,
Right.
that it can't just be placed in ki like वो ये story Korea में भी हो सकती थी.
What would qualify?
Nothing that's been made yet,
Wow.
for sure. I can't quite think of anything, off the top of my head. Though I think, but so for example, yeah, I think a monsoon wedding is interesting.
Hmm.
It's and that's why it's found,
It's
the
placed.
kind of audience like that. Or maybe even a lunchbox. I'm not saying that I want to write anything of that sort or make
Sure.
anything like that, but
Sure.
since you asked like what kind, yeah, the like lunchbox about loneliness in a big city and two strangers connecting is a global theme.
Right.
But the way it is about dabbawalas and all is so Indian, na?
India.
But that can't happen anywhere. It can't
Yeah.
happen anywhere in India also. It's so
Yeah.
Bombay.
Yeah.
So that to me is a very global appeal story with an Indian heart. So sure, I'll have my brand of it. So that's one part, and the other is this is also something I've spoken about, is that if you realize there is something called the global urban culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is essentially that as urban people, we're very similar across the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've traveled extensively, been to 53 countries by now, and in most places, the urban pockets are exactly the same. The Turkish urban person and I talk the same way, or
Right.
and some of it is Americanized, of course, but like you got the jeans, you got McDonald's, you got Apple, all of that. So that's the beauty, is that global urban culture is similar everywhere. So
Hmm.
I can plug into it anywhere,
Hmm.
right? So in that sense, my story would be about, it comes from that global urban culture.
Right.
I am the product of the Indian part of the global urban
Urban.
culture, and therefore be able to talk to anybody actually, and yet bring my Indian perspective. So that's definitely the kind of stories that I'm waiting to tell. I don't think necessarily anybody's stopping me from it. Sometimes probably my own laziness, or just other stuff I'm distracted by. And the other, which I can cap this with, is that I'm you know, very deeply interested and involved in creating mythology meets Indian mythology meets quantum physics. Yes, totally.
Fridge of Capra.
And how. And I shared that with you already, that I wrote to him and he wrote back to me. So I just feel that that's my space really, and I haven't even told a single story out of, or in that space, which is I hate to call it fantasy because it's not, and I hate to call it mythology because it's not pure mythology. Yes, there is something like Kalki 2898 or 298, whatever it is, Kalki is out there. I really respect it for the fact that it's done so well, and I think the VFX is totally world level. That's great. I feel a little sad and embarrassed that it's so derivative, that it's taken from everywhere and there's not one single original idea in it. Because I feel in that space, you are, again, it's your dharma to come up with the right what if, and that what if must come from your own curiosity and your own study of life and your own research. That's when it's a truly original piece of work.
How
So-
to stay true to this while fighting the pressures of conformity as a writer?
So actually, honestly, this also most people know about me. I have two boxes here. And if you realize that a lot of my work is not something I have birthed. I have not gone out there with my ideas yet, because you see, from that time onwards, I've packed it aside to say I'll say it at the right time. So most of the time, I am writing or developing someone's original thought. वो उनका thought है. Of course,
Sure.
they may come to me literally with a thought,
Yeah.
or one line, or a book, or whatever. So I'm helping somebody, birth or develop their idea. And like I told you, there was that whole moment of, being a giver,
Right.
as a writer, as opposed to imposing your thought. So I look at it as, I don't look at it as conformity at all. I am a facilitator. I'm the engineer, or I'm the architect. You hired me to make your house.
Right.
So, so उसमें conformity क्या है? I'm the expert here.
Right.
I'm here to make a house that you want, na? So
Right.
I have to make the house you want, and I have
Right.
to help you make that house.
Right.
And it's my job to tell you कि बेटा ऐसे आप बनाओगे तो house गिर जाएगा.
Right,
And
right.
then it's your call. You still want to make that house?
Right.
Be my guest.
Conformity more also from the perspective of the young writers who are trying to find their voice. In fact, what I'll ask you, I'll rephrase the question. What is your voice of artist? Let me read.
Which is actually again a very different question, but let me just still finish the conformity part, because I know it's a very important question, and especially for a writer, it's very
Young
important.
writers.
Yeah, for all writers, young and old. Because, like I said, see, while I realize that writing is a very giving, very supportive, the feminine, part of the process.
Yeah.
But just like in a marriage, and just like women in the world, whoever said that that's supposed to be second class, whoever said that you are lesser, or you have to be submissive. So I think that's the problem writers, or that's the mistake I would say that writers create for themselves. That oh, it's my job to listen. तो क्या हो गया कि इंडस्ट्री को भी आदत होगी कि राइटर तो सुनता है ना,
सुनता है.
राइटर कहाँ जवाब देता है.
Right.
A writer's job is to just go and
Write and not think.
To write what I'm telling you to write, and a lot of poor thing, and I don't judge anybody for it. For a lot of people, that's what gets them work, that's what makes them whatever, and which is why, I'm sorry, but a lot of writers cannot create on their own. They need directors to write with, because they're very good as that support. But to be submissive and supportive and to be facilitator are two very different things.
Right.
A facilitator has his or her own ideas. You
Yeah.
are an expert in that field. You lead
Yeah.
in that field.
Yeah.
You lead, but not, you don't dominate, you lead.
Right.
But poor writers, I think it's just been conditioned ki it's the same as, I call it creative patriarchy. It's like ladki ko tumko to nibhana hi hai. So a writers expected that only ki tumko to nibhana hi
Karna
hai.
hi
you
hai.
know.
We'll
So,
come to the
yeah.
voice of artist later, but
Yeah.
this is a very good segue to your writers group
Haan,
that
okay.
you run,
Right.
Kosen Rufu.
That's right.
Please tell us about that.
So yeah, okay. Kosin Rufu is the name of my writing company, and I chose that because it comes from my Buddhist practice. So that anybody, when they ask me what it means, I get to spread my practice. Kosin Rufu actually means world peace. It also means one candle lights the other. So it's enlightenment, like one person at a time.
Yeah.
So I find that so beautiful,
Yeah.
and I thought that kind of gave me the centering on what I want to do. But its birth was out of sheer boredom
Mhm.
because at the end of 2016 or 17, 2016, I just felt for various reasons, my film wasn't happening and whatever. And I felt, oh my God, I want to quit everything and I'm so bored, I don't want to do this. But then again, when I introspected, I realized, no, I'm just bored of the way I've been functioning so far. So up until then, I was a solo writer. I was completely solo. Everything was just mine, me, myself, my laptop, this, that. And that solitariness, that solitude had got into me. So I just suddenly birthed this idea, even before writers' rooms became a norm, I just, somehow it just happened, I had writers around
Organically.
me. Yeah, it was very organic and they came together and somebody gave us a job and, Bible and whatever. And that's how it birthed and, it remains till today.
This is beautiful. Now going back to what is your voice
Right.
of artist?
So if by that you mean like what is my voice, like what is in that sense brand Anuradha when it comes
Yeah.
to a script, I would say so. I'll just explain it minorly and then maybe concretize it. So I think again as screenwriters and as writers, you have different strengths at different levels, right? I would say I think I'm a bit of a structure Nazi. I'm good at structures, I think, and that's what I bring most to the table. And then of course some out of box ideas or whatever. But I would say that I think most people would call me because I can create in I think newer characters and world. I think so character building and world building is really in that sense my forte. So eventually when I put it all together, I would say up until now, definitely till my most relevant work or my work on air right now, I think my work has been about saying that, yeah, it's all really fucked up, but there's great hope.
Nice.
So I'm constantly, so in some ways, I'm saying it's gritty but pretty. I'm always saying that, yes, I'm a huge realist at that. I hate delusional, la di da stuff that, oh, it's also cute. I mean, cutesy stuff, it does get to me because it's so unreal. So I like to put it out there as is, but I'm saying, hey, there is a way out. There's always a way out. I mean, I live on that belief.
Hope is
So
underrated.
yeah, completely. So well, let me end it by saying that it's a great quote from Jim Carrey, because look at the life he's led, and in a great interview he said it, and I've just taken it from him. He says, hope is a beggar, faith is the real hero.
Wow.
And I just Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
my respect on this one, because look at what he's saying that hope is still ki yaar ho jayega shayad. Faith is like knowing brand audacity. That's what it really
Nice.
means. Yeah.
What do you read? What kind of content do you consume to be who you are today?
What a sweet question. Thank you. No, a lot of crap right now. Actually, I'm not really receiving content right now. I'm on a detox because I think there's just too much of it.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think I'm still surviving on a lot of the stuff that I've read all my life.
Which is?
So, which is a lot of literature, of course. International literature, English literature, Hindi, so much of it. Bangla translated.
Please leave some names for the audience.
Sure, I mean those are some of the standard ones. मतलब अगर आपने महादेवी वर्मा नहीं पढ़ा और अगर आपने वात्स्यायन के बारे में नहीं सुना और अगर आपको रामधारी सिंह दिनकर नहीं पता है तो आप थोड़े से impoverished हैं. Yes, of course, Premchand, of course, but just more nuanced work than that. So yeah, I think exactly when you've been reading since bachpan. And a lot of poetry, of course, Pablo Neruda, of course, and so on and so forth, and then a lot of spiritual. Okay, thank you for asking because I'm concretizing it for myself for the first time. So I think there is one box which is all about literature.
Sure.
Which is, like I said, whether it's Isabella Allende or it's Toni Morrison or it's Amitav Ghosh or just great writing.
Sure.
So there's a lot of that. In fact, right now I'm so topped up that I'm not really reading. Then there is a whole lot of I would say spiritual stuff. you know, whether it's autobiography of a yogi who's my guru, or whether it's Osho or whatever. So a lot of philosophies, you know, and lots of schools of thought. And the third is a lot of mythologies, you know, so not just Indian or Hindu or whatever, but, you know, whether it's Celtic or whether it's, you know, Peruvian or whatever. I'm very interested in
I'm
myths.
interested by Mayan civilization.
And how, right?
Yeah.
And having visited those places. So a lot of that. And then, like we touched upon it a little earlier, a huge personal study into quantum physics. Huge. And I was just one of those lucky, really, I always consider myself lucky, is that at the ripe old age of 21, I stumbled upon quantum physics and the Mundaka Upanishad at the same time. And I saw the parallels already. It was almost like swimming in front of my eyes. And that became my sort of quest and journey, and it'll last me a lifetime, obviously. You know, you never really reach the other end in that sense. So yeah, these are all the things that I consume. And yes, I'm very interested in a lot of psychology stuff. But I must tell you, and it's so important, I equally look at really shallow stuff. And, you know, there's a whole, you know, part of my day dedicated to very shallow nonsense. Like, I love watching some random, Woompla or whatever. And, you know, I mean, I'm interested in seeing Urfi Javed ne aaj kya pehna. And, you know, and just like, and gossip, I love that at a random level. So for me, this knowledge is very important, from the sublime to the ridiculous. So
Right.
I
Just to
take
be
it all.
connected and be alive.
Yeah, and to just be human about it, you know.
Yeah.
And yes, and like, you know, sometimes I'm looking at makeup tutorials because I feel very makeup challenged. I don't know anything about it. And just so on and so forth. I look at travel. Oh, I love looking at travel videos. And yeah, sometimes all these influencers, and yeah, all these comedy sketches, like, you know, there's some very funny people, I think.
You're full of life, Anuradha, is all I can say. Anuradha, that little girl who appreciated rain, you know, the child version of you, what would that girl say to you today?
Keep going. And, like, you know, never give up on the rain, you know. And I just, yeah, like, just never lose this feeling, because it's so pure. And I mean, if I just, you know, elaborated on that, there's, like, you know, there's an awe of nature, there's curiosity, there's faith, there is gratitude, there is pure joy, you know. And so just, it's not just a moment with rain, it's actually a very spiritual moment, just that you're too young to really understand it. So yeah, that girl will say that never lose your, you know, love story with the rain, because everything else will, you know, always continue. और आपका वो cosmic flow के साथ जो dance है वो फिर नहीं जाएगा. You know, that's, she'll only say that.
Thank you so much for coming to Voice of Artist, and it's a pleasure having you here. Thank you again.
No, thank you too. This was a really lovely conversation, and I'm so glad we had this. And I really hope that anybody watching gets a few directions from it, because that's really our intention here. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for having me over.
Thank
Really.
you.